I've always been an adventurous hiker, exploring trails and finding solitude in nature. After a devastating breakup, I decided to take a cross-country trip to clear my head. One of my most anticipated stops was Utah's Wasatch National Forest, a vast, untouched wilderness perfect for someone like me, who prefers isolated hikes away from bustling trails. I chose an unmarked area deep in the forest, driving my car as far as the narrow access road would allow. The air was eerily still as I stepped out, my phone showing no service, just the way I liked it. After taking a deep breath of the wilderness, I marked my starting point in my mind and set off. My goal was a scenic lookout point at the mountain summit, a challenging 3 to 4 miles away. About an hour into my hike, a light rain began to fall. Frustrated, I decided to turn back. But when I reached the clearing where I had parked, my heart froze. All 4 tires of my car had been slashed. The realization hit me like a cold wave, this wasn't an accident. Someone had done this deliberately. I scanned the surrounding forest, but it offered no answers, just the relentless patter of raindrops on leaves. With no phone service, I weighed my options. Walking back to civilization, nearly 20 miles down the access road, was dangerous and exposed. My only hope was to climb to the lookout point where I might get a signal. My pulse quickened as I headed back into the forest, my sense of unease growing with every step. About halfway to the summit, I began hearing faint rustling sounds behind me. They seemed to mimic my movements, stopping when I stopped, starting when I started. The thought of turning around terrified me, so I quickened my pace. The sun was sinking, casting long shadows that turned the forest into a maze of darkness. Finally, I reached the summit, where I was relieved to find a weak cell signal. I called the police, reporting my location, the vandalism, and the unsettling feeling that I was being followed. They assured me help was on the way, but I would have to make my way back through the dark forest alone. Determined to avoid any potential ambush, I decided to take a different route back to my car, forming a semicircle around the original path. My navigation skills were decent, and for a while, everything seemed fine. Then, I heard it, a snap of a twig to my left. I spun around but saw nothing. Moments later, another sound came, this time from behind me. My stomach sank as I realized I wasn't being followed by one person, there were multiple. I picked up the pace, my light jog turning into a panicked sprint. That's when I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold, a makeshift campsite hidden deep in the forest. The remnants of a fire were surrounded by a circle of logs, and I knew instantly that someone, or something, had been there recently. As I sprinted away, I glanced over my shoulder and caught sight of them. At least 6 figures, all dressed in white, were charging toward me. Their movements were inhumanly fast, their faces obscured by the shadows. The sound of their pursuit grew louder, their feet pounding against the forest floor. By some miracle, I reached the clearing where my car was parked, and there was a police vehicle waiting. I collapsed in relief as the officer helped me to safety. When I turned back, the figures were gone, swallowed by the forest as if they had never been there. The officer explained something chilling. The Wasatch National Forest has a dark history, home to secluded communities and rumors of cult activity. What I had encountered that night was likely one of these groups, and I had unknowingly trespassed into their domain. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't reached the summit in time, or if the officer hadn't been there. One thing is certain, some places are meant to remain unexplored.